Well, good day, fun friends. My name is Rob, and my intention with these videos is to help people like you learn how to realize your most authentic and true self. So in today's extremely chiseled, good-looking video, wow, my electric beard trimmer broke while I was trimming my beard this morning, so I had to finish the job with an acoustic razor.
This anthem is for you, my friends, I know we know what
So this is actually the first time I've had a clean shave in probably over a decade, and if you don't like it, well, feel free to write a letter to the internet. So before I even begin, I just want to mention that all the information that I give you is based solely on my perspective and my point of view and my experiences because, well, that's all I really have for sure. So in presenting that to you, it's my hope that maybe some of the best of it all you can resonate with and maybe find practical application in your life. And if not, well, just take what resonates and leave what doesn't. So for today's video, I'm just kind of winging this. I don't have a script or anything like that. Well, I just felt like doing it that way, so let's see what happens. But I do have a little bit of an agenda here. So I was out for a walk the other day, and when I go for walks in nature, that's when I actually spend the most time just constantly talking to my guides. And every once in a while, a piece of information comes through, and I just know, like, this is a piece of information to hold on to for later. It's a good juicy one. And the piece of information that came through was a phrase, and at the time I understood the context, but the phrase on its own is simply, any amount is an infinite amount. So I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about the things that this applies to. The first thing that popped in my mind when I heard this, and I knew it was talking about a few things, but for example, the energy of love is fractal. It's infinite. And what I mean by that is, let's do a comparison. Now, if this is my first video that you've ever seen, I'm a highly intuitive empath, and I see energy as well as feel it. So when I feel into the energy of, say, hate, jealousy, comparison, all these very, very low emotions, this is what I see. Now, you'll notice the lines. First of all, the lines. Not the quality of the lines per se, because they're very frantic, but, well, just the fact that there are lines. When I see lines in energy, to me, that typically indicates some sort of contrast, where one kind of energy meets another that's not like it. But what I want to point out with these lines is it forms a circle. It is exclusive. So nothing from the outside of the circle can get in, and nothing inside of the circle can get out. It's a complete circle, like a trap, which really does say a lot about things like hate, jealousy, comparison. Now, as a contrast, when I look into the energy of, I don't want to say love quite yet, but the energies of contentment, fun, joy, this is what I get. So this is very inclusive. Very inclusive. Anything can get in or out with freedom. And to me, love shares this quality, although love itself does actually have a form, but I'll get to that in a bit. What I want to point out with this is this represents our natural state. This represents all the things that feel good. And high emotions feel good because they are our natural state, and they're all akin to each other. This is fun, this is love, this is joy, this is compassion. But the reason I want to talk about love after mentioning this is because love is a very fractal energy. At the time of shooting this video, I haven't actually tried drawing love yet, but I can describe what it looks like to me. It still kind of makes a circle, but it makes a soft circle. Love is fractal, just like consciousness. This is where that initial phrase comes in. Any amount is an infinite amount. So let's quickly mention consciousness. So your consciousness, or your soul, whatever you identify yourself to be, to put it very simply, you are like, if this is source energy over here, God, I know I'm limiting it, but just bear with me. If this is source energy, you are a little piece of that source energy that's kind of broken off, and you've put yourself into the perception of limitation. You're not actually limited, but you feel like you are. You think you are. That's perception. You've done this on purpose because this is part of the human experience. We'll talk about that later. That little piece of consciousness is capable of feeling just as much as this whole over here, this source. And really, if it allows it, it can feel the full spectrum that the source feels. Okay, this seems weird. I'm shaking my fist and saying this represents God. So consciousness, again, if you're to take a consciousness and chop it up into a grid, into little squares, each one of those little squares would be a smaller version of the complete picture that the bigger one formed, rather than just being a little section of it. So that's fractal. It can reproduce itself infinitely in its entirety. This is a little thought that I could visualize from the time I was a toddler. I could see how something could be fractal, and I never understood why people couldn't see it. So when it comes to consciousness, any amount is an infinite amount because reality is quantum. Love works the same way. The energy of love, it does have a form, and that form is fractal. It can start just a singularity, just the smallest little amount you could possibly imagine. And that little amount, depending on how you nurture it, can take over the world with itself in a way. So, for example, in context, a little bit of love, just a little inkling of empathy can inspire one action, which now you've invoked the butterfly effect, and away we go. In short terms, that's how it works. So I just kind of wanted to make mention of, there are these attributes that are within us and that we work with in this human life, where really the guiding principle is any amount is an infinite amount. And the purpose of me mentioning this, aside from just defining it as I have here, this is a message of hope. And this message is coming from our higher selves, our friends that are a little bit beyond our human perception. And for me, these messages roll in all the time, and it's always something positive, something useful that can really be applied on any level. It can be applied in our immediate lives. It can be applied to society at large. It can be, and this is another example of something just simply being fractal in its own nature. So now let's apply this to the lives that a lot of us are living right now and the experiences we're having. My goodness, have you looked at the world around us right now? It feels really difficult sometimes to carry that light and that love. And sometimes it can feel diminished. I know we all feel like that from time to time. I've had a horrendous week like this where it's been an integration week where I really have not felt a lot of inspiration, and I have not been perceiving the feeling of a whole lot of love. And that's okay, because I know what's going on in the background and I'm just being patient with it. But in these times, it is really important to understand that even just that slightest little amount that we do still feel, if that's what you're feeling, that's all you need. That's all you need. So this applies to all of us light workers. I mean, if you ask me, technically everybody's a light worker, but you know what I'm saying. Those of us who have really consciously accepted these tasks, I guess. Because what's happening with the shift right now, and we're going to see more and more and more of this, is the first thing that happened was people like you and I started to wake up and we started to find our light. And then the second thing that happened is we started shining that light everywhere. Then the third thing that happened was we started shining that light in dark corners and we started seeing piles of dirt. And the reason for that is because we need to know where the dirt to clean up even is before we can clean it up, right? I'm using metaphors here. We've arrived at that stage, and then the next phase after that is, I have to diverge from metaphors here because dirt in a corner doesn't really suit this, but basically now that we've identified all of these aspects of our society, which is a reflection of our mass consciousness, the old systems that no longer serve us have to fall away. They have to crumble, they have to rot, they have to deteriorate, or they have to be torn down. The choice is ours. But that has to happen so that we can take the things from our past that we've perfected, move those forward, get rid of the things that don't serve us so well, and then rebuild the new where the old once was. That in a nutshell, is the most simple version I can give you, I can conjure, of what's happening with the shift in human consciousness, kind of from a nuts and bolts point of view. So as this happens, and again, don't take this as like crying doom or anything like that, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. The old systems are beginning to fall away. They're being seen, they're being identified, they're being torn down. And then the next phase is to replace them. Not to get political, because I will never get political on this channel, but this is too perfect of an example not to use, actually, and we all know it. The Minneapolis Police Department has been disbanded now, or they're in the process of disbanding, I'm not sure. But this is an example of it. George Floyd, rest his soul, you know, he took a great fall to be a catalyst for profound change that has needed to happen for so long, you guys, for so long. And there was chaos. There was, you know, you name it that we don't think is good. It's happened as a result of this. The good, bad, and the ugly. And now that system has fallen. And that makes room for the new, the better, the next thing that is a reflection of our consciousness as it evolves, and it's going to keep on evolving. We're going to keep on climbing in that vibration, and as we do that, the world that we see around us is going to act as a mirror to what our current collective state is, and our individual states too. Bashar has a really good analogy for it. He talks about how in the old energy you could not see that, you could not perceive that which you were not the vibration of, not the frequency of. And now what's happening is, as we're moving into this new energy, we're expanding. The walls that kind of separate, you know, one reality from another have turned from solid black to glass. So now we can kind of start seeing a wider perspective. We can start seeing into potentials and areas where we could not before, because our perspective has become that much higher as we've allowed it to. And so now we can see many, many things that are not commensurate with our current state of being, our vibration. We can see it. They can't touch us, but we're beginning to see it. That being said, what I want to leave off with is, and I posted this on Facebook, is I want to give you guys a challenge, okay? And this is commensurate with our evolution. But one of the things that we're starting to understand as we ascend is we're starting to understand what we're leaving behind underneath us. You know, the denser emotions, all the negative stuff like hate and so forth. And this is a little thing that popped into my head to help us better understand the nature of hate, because understanding the nature of hate is also recognizing it within ourselves, at least from time to time, because we're still human, we're all guilty of it. But the point is, if you want to have a world with less hate, stop putting more hate into it. You know, hate's kind of like water, right? If you're filling a glass with water and you keep dumping more and more and more and more and more, and eventually it's going to overflow and soak everything around it. So the moral of the story here is, don't become the other side of the same coin. An example of that is, let's say you're seeing hate groups, and it breaks all of our hearts. I understand, it really does. You know, I don't like seeing hate groups either. And then what do? We become the other side of the same coin. We start hating the haters. And so at that point, that cup's overflowing and you're just dumping more water into it. What I want you to try, this is challenge number 1. Maybe there will be more, I don't know. But the first challenge, it's a 24-hour challenge. I want you to see if you can go 24 hours, make a note of the time right now because your challenge begins now, 24 hours without giving the time of day to any concept that even touches or has the slightest thing to do with hate. Specifically, I want you to go 24 hours without even mentioning the things that you hate or that you don't like or that make you feel uncomfortable, okay? This can be anything. It can be politics, it can be news, it can be talking about these things, it can be sharing articles on Facebook. If it has anything to do with division, hate, politics, duality, divisiveness, any of that stuff, don't give it the time of day. Okay? Now, several people will hear this and they'll roll their eyes at it. If this is eye rolling to you, then surely you should have no problems at all, right? There is a realization to be had here. I'm not going to give it to you. Only you can find it, and you will find it if you carry this challenge through to completion. And obviously, this is the fractal thing. Start with 24 hours. If you can't do 24 hours, it's okay. Give yourself another 24 and another 24. It's okay to stumble. This is part of learning. Once you've made it that 24, go 48. Go a week. Okay? I'm sure even I've never been able to do this, but in dealing with this and noticing it and identifying these aspects within ourselves, you learn about it, okay? And you gain profound insight that cannot be given to you by another. Okay, this is realization. Only you guys can find it for yourself. That being said, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope any of this made sense. And as always, you guys, if you find yourself needing somebody to talk to about the experiences that you're having that have to do with your consciousness, your spirituality, any of this stuff, my inbox is always open. That being said, please be excellent to each other. Know that I love you guys, and know that you have support. You always have support. You cannot be alone if you wanted to. Okay, I love you. Bye.